In my book, I do not describe Dr. Ko as an organ broker. I describe him as a man of singular courage. Dr. Ko basically admitted that he had stumbled into something terrible in China. He was looking into the quality of care for transplant patients. Elderly people in Taiwan who wanted to get an organ. China's obviously the go-to place. To wait in Taiwan on the list was a death sentence for somebody who needed a new liver. Now this is back in 2004, 2005. China's out there advertising prices, advertising care. So at some point he's in the mainland, and he goes to a hospital and he talks to the doctors, and they go through some sort of getting to know you process. And at the end of that process, they say, well, look, we will give your patients from your clinic or whatever, we'll give them a Chinese price, about half the foreigner price. But they say, we also understand your concerns about organ quality. He was looking out for his patients or his clinic. In China, you negotiate. Everybody negotiates. Politicians negotiate, businessmen negotiate, doctors negotiate. My mother negotiated for the price of a banana for about 5 minutes in a Beijing market. And there's nothing hidden about that, or surreptitious, or even evil about it. It is simply the way things in business is done in China. What he was told, though, was something he did not expect. Dr. Ko was basically told, you don't have to worry about the quality of these organs because they're Falun Gong. These are people, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they practice very healthy Qigong. Everybody knows that Falun Gong are arrested with often aren't arrested at all. They just simply disappear. They were taken in. Everybody knows they're being tortured. I mean, this is not a secret in Taiwan. This was an appalling thing, a terrible thing that he'd walked into here. He did something about it. He created a form, an electronic form on his computer. He put a lot of work into this, which Chinese doctors would have to use, which would identify where every organ came from. He said this would only take care of 95% of this problem. He wasn't referring to criminals being harvested. He was referring to Falun Gong being harvested. He was basically saying this would shame mainland doctors. This would give a sense of transparency to the process. This would make them accountable. There's no other reason that he created this form. In a sense, he was trying to do what the Transplantation Society tried to do only over the last 2 years, was to bring accountability to the system, and he was trying to do this alone. This is not a figment of our imagination. And we both understood exactly what we were talking about. I played with that form. I moved up and down it. I cursored around all over his computer. My researcher did too. I describe him as a man of singular courage, because this was an act of courage. It was a profoundly dangerous act. In fact, he told me that he was banned from the mainland. Let's go to 2013. I'm getting closer with my book. And at one point, I wanted to put out an article. And I wrote up a text of what I remembered of our interview. It's called A Tale of Two Surgeons. I sent this text to my researcher, Li Shai. Li Shai added on a little note to Dr. Ko. Under the circumstances that we don't mention your name, specific situations, or any details, is it okay to write this content? That's number one. Number two, is his draft of the story below, and it's below, according to reality? Is it factual? Because at the time we didn't record and we didn't ask too much about this direction. So there are some situations we're not too clear about. We just remember the general drift. Could you take a look and tell us where the story has inaccuracies? If it's incorrect, how should it be correctly stated? Dr. Ko's answer is right above it. The story seems okay. I defy anyone to find significant differences in what's being published here than in January 2014. The request to identify Dr. Ko by his real name is granted by Dr. Ko. Again, there's a long explanation. We wanted to ask you if you'd be willing to give us permission to use your name when mentioning the things you told us. In the past, we just referred to you as an anonymous Taiwan doctor, but it is much more credible with a name. This will help the evidence. You would be doing a great service. Maybe even help save some people's lives. What is his answer? Okay, for what I say, I can be responsible. We asked him for a headshot for the book, and my best wishes to you. This is Dr. Ko's response. Sent the picture for the book. Now, any time in any of these three responses, he could have come back and said, just hang on a minute. No, he did not. And actually, I don't think that speaks badly about his character. I think that speaks well of his character. I think he's actually a very honest man. The truth that he signed off on was in this book. The way the interview was done was in this book. They didn't want to look at the book. The book was just a prop. And that offends me, because it is not supposed to be a prop. This is actually supposed to be a book that people read. I understand that there are language differences and all the rest of it, and I understand that reporters are stressed and there's a 24-hour news cycle and all that stuff. But the truth is, this is their responsibility, is to get it right. They didn't do their homework here. I was asked for a statement by the Taiwan Central News Agency. Now, that's basically the equivalent of AP over here. I put together a one-paragraph statement, had it translated into the most brilliant Chinese, and said, if you run this, you run it as exclusive, you run it in full, you run it with my Chinese translation. They said, oh, yes, 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 we'll do all that. And then I waited, and they didn't run it. Okay, so, and I have emails to prove that too. You know, the bottom line here is that they weren't looking for anything like this. They were looking for a soundbite. They were looking for a knife to throw. Or they were looking, reporters, as reporters will do, is just like you and Dr. Ko, fight. That's what they wanted. But I do not want to fight. This is a witness I respect. It's a man I respect. What I want is the truth. And we have a saying in English, truth is the first casualty of war. And certainly that goes for political campaigns too. I don't think it's a crime to be careless in this world. I don't think it's a crime to be a little politically naive. Mature adults can accept that Dr. Ko is not a perfect human being. I don't think he even presents himself that way. And I'm not a perfect reporter. But I think the idea is that we can settle on this one area. Something happened important during that interview. And I believe that there will be others to come. There will be new witnesses coming down the pike all the time. I'm certainly happy to put an asterisk by certain statements. Was he looking out for individual patients? Perhaps not. Perhaps he was just looking in for his clinic. Did he go to a karaoke bar with the Chinese surgeons? Well, actually, when you negotiate things in Chinese, that's been my experience about how you do it, but I really don't care. I'm happy to say he didn't go to a karaoke bar. That's a campaign issue. It's a frivolous campaign issue. The truth is, did he make appointments for his patients afterwards? Did he make them at that hospital? I'm happy to put an asterisk on any of that. And you know why? It's not central to the story. What is central to the story is he found out, stumbled into, discovered that there were Falun Gong organs for sale in at least one hospital in 2005. This is before Kilgore Mattis report. This is before Epoch Times reported in Sujiatan. This is before any Falun Gong practitioners which had appeared during that time, and Ming Hui or whoever was debriefing them, it wasn't taken seriously. Even within the practitioner community, there was a denial about this issue. So this was something he stumbled into at a very unusual time. My feeling was that the truth couldn't come out during the election, and that nobody cared about the actual issue that I wanted to talk about. Was approached by at least 10 reporters. Not one of them asked me a question about Falun Gong organ harvesting, Uyghur organ harvesting, Tibetan organ harvesting. I estimate that about 10 people a day are being harvested for their organs in China that are prisoners of conscience. This is a very serious issue. This is a crime against humanity. Long after Dr. Ko is in the history books, this will really be in the history books. It is not just Dr. Ko who stumbled into something terrible. At this point, I mean, if anything's good has come out of this election, it is that now all of Taiwan has stumbled into something really terrible. You think that's terrible? Ban it. It's that simple. That's all Taiwan has to do. You can prevent people from going to China, and if Taiwan did, if they followed Israel's example, they'd be setting an amazing precedent. This is up to them, and I really do hope that Dr. Ko will be one of the people leading that effort.